It was always going to be a general election like no other. The need for social distancing meant that the virtual space became a key battleground. With the dust settling in, we take a look at the effects of Singapore's first digital election. For the first time, the election saw restricted walkabouts and the removal of physical rallies. Parties experimented with various formats online, from talk shows to live forums to using social media to connect with Singaporeans. While there were concerns that campaigning through a device would lose the human touch, parties were armed with different strategies to win voters.
Despite the online medium, not being one which we would associate with, that level of intimacy. But the Workers' Party, I suppose, because the candidates were willing to share, their innermost feelings and speak frankly, that enabled them to connect with, the audience in a way that I think many other parties perhaps didn't quite succeed. The ruling party, I felt, was very heavy on focusing on jobs. That, in many respects, could have put off some voters because it would seem that the campaign was very narrowly focused, and voters felt that the general election was also a time in which voters should be able to hear what parties have to say about a whole variety of issues, right? Physical campaigning and online campaigning are now complementary modes of campaigning. Yes, parties have to go online, but what is also critical is how do you campaign online? How do you engage your audience? How do you put across, that real side of, your party and your candidates?
Media monitoring platform Meltwater Data tracked political parties' Facebook pages from July 1st to 10. It found that while the PAP created the most Facebook posts, it did not have the most engagement. With every post made, it had an average of 1,048 likes, comments, reactions, and/or shares on the platform. The Workers' Party had an average of 3,846 interactions per post, while the PSP made 2,259 engagements. But online interaction should not be seen as a true indicator of vote share.
We have to be very cautious about looking at online engagement and correlating that with vote share, because whatever is considered online engagement is probably just whatever has caught people's attention and whatever has gone viral at that particular moment in time. And things can become viral and catch people's attention for a vast variety of reasons.
And the second reason why you cannot just rely on online activism to correlate with vote shares is because it's a very select group of people. So there's a proportion of people who are old, digitally excluded.
From the histories of new candidates such as Ivan Lim and Raisa Khan to the speeches and stunts that became fodder for social media comments and memes, Singaporeans did not hold back when it came to discussing politics online.
The amount of information, the viewpoints, I think went up multiple times in this general election. But I think the online campaign in a digital election does enable, many of these different perspectives to be brought out into the open. And it's not just parties and candidates, it was just the ordinary Singaporean.
You need to be a bit more guarded and cautious when you post on Facebook. You can be a little bit more open and transparent on private messaging. So the amount of political vigor and robustness that I see based on my own personal experience for this particular election tells me that Singaporeans are very concerned and active, and more so than before.
Singapore's first digital election proved that physical and virtual spaces cannot be separated. With more information expected to flood in from both worlds, voters face a different set of challenges moving forward.
One of the ways in which you can measure how this election changed the political landscape in Singapore is to see whether this digital activism will actually translate to offline activism, meaning more participation in politics, more writing of petitions, more engagement in forums or city hall discussions.
In a digital election, or increasingly when the digital medium plays a big part, it also means that voters will have to raise their game, right? Voters will have to be able to discern, fact from fiction, noise from substance.